Hello everyone, and welcome to another in my constructed video series. This is Brian Kibler with StarCityGames.com, and I couldn't let this one pass me up. This is the green-black Constellation deck, or Golgari Constellation deck, played by Lucas Blohan to a top 8 finish at Grand Prix Stockholm a couple weeks ago. And those of you who've been following my constructed videos and writings for a while know that last standard season, Constellation was a deck that I really enjoyed, had a lot of fun with, and I wanted to give this deck a spin, see how it runs, and see if it has what it takes to compete in the current standard environment. I think that the answer to that is clearly it does, because the results that decks like this put up recently are very impressive. This is kind of funny. I actually have to slide this over because there's Hornet Queens. Did I not get my Hornet Queens? I may need to actually go and get Hornet Queens after this because I apparently did not get them. But anyway, maybe I have the wrong kind or something. I don't know. Regardless, the deck is clearly pretty powerful. I don't know, whatever. Here, that'll be half off the screen. Who knows? I'm so used to things usually cutting off after there. I have 7 cost guys in my deck. But anyway, the Enchantress engine, the Constellation engine, Enchantress being the term that people use for it because Argothian Enchantress and Verduran Enchantress were cards that previously existed that allow you to draw a card whenever an enchantment enters the field. So Eidolon of Blossoms is pretty much the second coming of Verduran or Argothian Enchantress. You see those decks sometimes still, very rarely in Legacy, but they do exist. And the power of a deck like this is its ability to use the engine card, in this case Eidolon of Blossoms, to generate additional resources whenever you actually play another card of that type. You have Eidolon of Blossoms, Courser of Crufix, Brain Maggot, and Doomwake Giant, along with Pharika, all of which are enchantments, and in particular Pharika is able to create enchantment creatures. So by itself, Pharika's ability isn't super impressive, but the fact that it creates enchantments which trigger your constellation effects is extremely powerful. Also, Whip of Erebos, another enchantment, has a lot of synergy with some of the other stuff going on in the deck. You have a lot of graveyard elements. You have Satyr Wayfinder and Commune with the Gods that fill up your graveyard, which enable Murderous Cut, which is one of the most efficient removal spells that exists in Standard. One of the things that's sort of a characteristic of the current Standard format is that a lot of the removal spells are either very conditional, there's something like Lightning Strike or Magma Jet that can only kill small creatures, or there's something that is relatively expensive. You have Hero's Downfall, you have Abzan Charm, which is both expensive and conditional, though it does have multiple other modes that are powerful. Murderous Cut, on the other hand, it's only conditional in the sense that you need to be able to enable it. You need to have the cards in your discard to be able to delve away in order to get it as an efficient removal spell. But when you do, it's pretty much the best deal in town. Being able to spend 1 mana to Murderous Cut off of a Commune with the Gods or a Satyr Wayfinder can really swing a game around. And when a deck has as many tools to win long games as a deck like this does, with Eidolon of Blossoms and Hornet Queen, you have just a lot of powerful stuff going on, and the ability to get there thanks to Murderous Cut. So this deck also has Nykthos, which is a very powerful late game tool in those instances where you are able to assemble a lot of colored mana symbols on your creatures. You have both Courser of Crufix and Eidolon of Blossoms and Hornet Queen, all of which generate a significant amount of colored sources for Nykthos. So you get to the late game, you can be powering out multiple things in a turn, which is really particularly powerful when you have Eidolon of Blossoms going and you're drawing multiple cards. So the sideboard has some interesting stuff. You have 4 copies of Thoughtseize, one of which is hiding over here for some reason. A Dark Betrayal. I just sort of took the Dark Betrayal from the list that Lucas played at the Grand Prix. I can see Dark Betrayal being very powerful against specifically the aggressive Abzan decks. Having a way to kill Siege Rhino along with Rakshasa Death Dealer and Herald Torment very efficiently seems valuable. As to whether those decks are particularly important in the metagame is another question, but didn't want to sort of shake things up without playing the deck first. Doomwake Giant, a very powerful card. Only a couple of copies in the main deck because there are matchups in which it is certainly not particularly potent. Any matchup where your opponent has a significant number of 1 toughness creatures, unsurprisingly, Doomwake Giant is very, very good in. It's particularly powerful against other mana creature decks. Being able to kill Elvish Mystics, being able to kill the tokens from Hornet Queen, or against mono red where so many of the creatures are 1 toughness to begin with. It's just a very powerful effect. And I really like this. This is one of the things about the sideboard I like the most, is the 4 copies of Arbor Colossus. One of the issues that Constellation decks can have is that they generally have individually low impact cards. Because so much of the deck is devoted to sort of enabling this particular engine, the Eidolon of Blossoms, Doomwake Giant, etc., you are frequently playing games in which if you survive long enough, you have very powerful stuff going on, but your power comes from these interlocking parts. And against decks that have cheap removal spells that are able to easily deal with Eidolon of Blossoms, for instance, Jeskai. Jeskai is a deck that, Eidolon of Blossoms isn't really where you want to be. Eidolon of Blossoms is a great card against any deck that the games are likely to go long, against a deck like Abzan, against any sort of control deck, against any sort of other green deck. But against a deck like Jeskai, those sort of small edges that you're able to eke out are going to take too long to actually get into place, and you can frequently just die before you get there because you're sort of spending too much mana trying to set up. Whereas Arbor Colossus is just a power card. It's 5 mana for a 6/6 reach creature, which conveniently stops Ashcloud Phoenix. It stops Mantis Rider, Stormbreath Dragon, Sarkhan. It gets in the way of all these, and then can monster us to become a 9/9 and kill a flyer. So super powerful card. Certainly a card that I don't want to run into if I'm playing Teamer, because it can just block the evasive creatures like Ashcloud Phoenix and munch on all of my smaller ground creatures. So very powerful card, and certainly one that I think the 4 of in the sideboard is very much warranted. Certainly goes to show that there was a lot of thought put into the deck construction, seeing that card in particular in the sideboard. Nissa, I've mentioned this a number of times. I think Nissa is pretty much the best option for any sort of green deck with mana acceleration to generally play against control decks. The black-blue control decks, which are relatively popular, sort of gone in and out of popularity. Those have very few ways to actually deal with Nissa. Even if they have Perilous Vault, which is generally their response once anything sort of major comes down that isn't just a creature that they can use a removal on, it actually doesn't kill the lands animated by Nissa, because Perilous Vault only removes non-land permanents from the battlefield. So very powerful there. And then a second Pharika. I imagine this is pretty much just for games that are likely to go long, against other green decks, things like that, where the additional effect of Pharika, also against other whip decks, where you can potentially use it to remove their creatures they're trying to whip into play. So pretty valuable there. So yeah. Anyway, we're going to give this deck a spin once I actually figure out what happened to these Hornet Queens that I thought I had, and we will do that now. So here we go.